Welcome back. Joining us now, making their very first appearance on New to the Street, is Calgary, Alberta, Canada-based GNOL. David Lifschultz is the chairman and CEO of GNOL. David, welcome to New to the Street.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure having you here. Now, for viewers tuning in and seeing GNOL for the very first time, who might not be familiar, what makes GNOL so unique in the space?
GNOL is like Schlumberger, a service contract that provides oil services for developing oil fields, combined with our unique technology that converts heavy oil into light oil, which and desulfurizes it at a 50% savings over our competitors. The combination is unique also in this very major respect. GNOL will bring the money from China for a project, which we have one in the Middle East for up to $35 to $50 billion, where we'll bring that money with us. We will do the project, and then we will take the oil and buy it back for China.
Talked a lot about China. You have some letters of intent with China. You're working with one of their top banks there. Explain your relationship with China. You did a little bit, but if you could go into that a little bit more and what that means for the company.
In China, we have two major alliances. One with the major bank in China, which is comparable to JP Morgan Chase. And they have issued for a Middle East project a $5 billion LOI for the first tranche of a $35 to $50 billion project. The second LOI is in Russia, a $50 billion LOI for projects in Russia for another 3.5 million barrels a day. And it's the same, as we said before, uniquely. We will take all the oil for China, and in fact in Russia we'll build the pipelines to China if necessary, as well as develop the field, build the pipelines, build the pumping stations, all that is necessary in order to transport the oil from Russia to China.
Is there progress in identifying the projects under the letters of intent?
A letter of intent for $5 billion LOI is one of the major oil companies in the Middle East, which we haven't publicly divulged the name, nor the bank in China, but we have the LOI to cover that. And so the customer is identified, and it's a giant and can absorb a 3.5 million barrel a day production for China. In Russia, we are now identifying projects. We're in the negotiations on specific projects right now.
What does GNOL do that separates you guys from everybody else in the space? You guys are a package deal, right?
I think we always discuss for a minute the scope of the operation, or the scope of the potential. There's 900 billion barrels of heavy oil in the ground, and we're using 3 billion barrels a day of oil. There's 400 billion barrels of light oil, and we're using, the world, 30 billion. So your world is using 30 billion of light on 400 billion reserve, which is not very much reserve. And then there's only 3 or 4 billion of heavy being used out of 900 billion barrels. We can convert that heavy oil into light oil at a profit on $50 WT of $20 a barrel, which we would make $3 a barrel on, or a minimum, or as a minimum, and if it's higher, 15% of the spread between the cost and the sale of the oil.
So we've seen oil prices, the last couple of years have been under a lot of pressure just from sheer supply. And you are able to withstand some of that fluctuation in oil prices. Tell me how your business model works so you're able to do that.
Well, first of all, China's demand for oil is growing. China has 230 million cars on the road, and the United States has 270 million. There are 330 million people in the United States. In China, there's 1.4 billion people. So they're going to have a lot more cars than we do. Demand for oil for China is going to be growing no matter what happens in the rest of the world. And China's delighted if the oil price goes down. We still get our $3 a barrel.
Politically, what is it like for GNOL to have relationships with countries like Russia and China, given the political climate these days?
Well, the main sanctions in Russia are against deep Arctic drilling, where we have the technologies. That sanction, and the other sanctions have to do with shale oil. But there are really no other sanctions on Russia that relates to our work there, and there's no sanctions, of course, in the Middle East for the Gulf states.
Tell us about your balance sheet.
The balance sheet has no debt to non-related parties. The insiders control whatever debt that is lent presently to the company. So it's secure, and the insiders are very close friends with the shareholders, and we will be always flexible and we will always be working in the shareholders' interests.
Staying on that, what would you want to tell potential investors who might be thinking about putting their money into oil, whether it be another company or GNOL, specifically GNOL, if they're looking to park their money there and go with you guys for the long haul? What do you want them to know?
What they want to know is that GNOL has no downward risk in the oil price. And GNOL, of course, benefits more because the spread will widen as the price goes up. But GNOL will get its $3 a barrel, and GNOL will get his override as the general contractor of the project. So if the oil price declines, China is very happy, and they will continue to plan for the future on increasing their supply.
Well, there's still kind of a developing economy, and there's so many people there, and that's, allows for a lot of upside for companies like GNOL.
Absolutely, and with 1.4 billion people.
And it doesn't matter how oil fluctuates, because no matter what, whether it goes to $100 a barrel or even goes down to $20 a barrel, GNOL gets paid.
GNOL gets paid from China, and China wants the oil. I think there's a tremendous opportunity at GNOL at this very early stage. It's not appreciated in the market like it should be, so the valuation is very considerably underneath what it should be, and it's therefore a golden opportunity of entry.
Last question, David. We talk to people from all different types of areas, all different companies, different industries. I want to know what drives you to be an oil guy. What kind of passion do you get out of doing this? Because you must love it.
The reason that I wanted to go into oil was when there was a two-way crisis at Lehman, it was solved very easily by just creating credit. They created 300 years worth of credit to get the United States economy out of its doldrums. There was $900 billion credit in the Federal Reserve then, and there's nearly $4 trillion now. But you can't paper over oil. So if there were a crisis in the Straits of Hormuz and 20 million barrels a day of oil was cut off, I thought that our technology developing as a shut-in capacity, the oil of 22 million barrels a day of shut-in capacity, could be the remedy to that, and that's why we got into it.
Dave, thank you very much for joining us here on New to the Street. Please keep us up to date on the latest happenings at GNOL. Come back and let's talk again.
My pleasure.
It's our pleasure. David Lifschultz, Chairman and CEO of GNOL. Now, if people want to learn more about GNOL, they can visit genoil.ca or call Steve Chizik at Investor Relations at GNOL at 201-454-5845. And if you want your company featured in a New to the Street half-hour special, we can come to you. Just visit newtothestreet.com, click Get Me on TV, follow the instructions, and one of our representatives will then be in touch with you.
And that's it for this edition of New to the Street. From New York, I'm Jane King.
And I'm Ken Evseroff. We'll see you next time on New to the Street. Thanks for watching.